Mark Grote joins us now on the Menard Studio Hotline. Mark, how you doing?
Good, Ryan and Jimmy, and I don't know if it was just completely random, but I really did appreciate the re-entry music there, a little Pearl Jam, even flow.
It wasn't totally random.
Love the PJ, and you got Jason Hamill pitching tonight too, so we'll get a good dose of Alive as well.
Well, I told Gavin before the show today, I said, I don't know why this stuck with me, but a couple of months ago, you guys were calling, I don't even remember what the game was, but I know Eddie Vedder was there, because he was playing a benefit show the next night, I think, at Wrigley, or he was in town for a concert of some sort, if I remember correctly.
Correct. Yeah, it was a benefit show, exactly.
And there was talk about you being a big Pearl Jam fan, and I told Gavin, I said, plug some Pearl Jam in there, because if I remember correctly, it's Mark who's the big Pearl Jam fan. And I said, you watch, though, he's going to come on and go, no, that's Ron Coomer. Ron Coomer's a big Pearl Jam fan.
Actually, Ron Coomer just thinks he's cool because he texts with Eddie Vedder during a lot lot of Cubs games.
Does he now?
I haven't reached the level of Coomer yet, but you know what? I feel like I know more about Pearl Jam than Coom does, but he's a little bit tighter with Ed. It's just, it's my rookie year, so eventually Ed and I will be tight too.
Yeah, you just joined the broadcast earlier this year, correct?
Yeah, this is my first year doing it. Yeah, they came over to CBS and went through the whole process. So this is my rookie year of following the Cubs everywhere they go. So I got a pretty good seat. I have season tickets, as I like to say.
Well, you got cheap season tickets because you don't pay for them, which is nice. But we really do. We enjoy listening to you guys on the game broadcasts each and every day when you guys have a game. And I know you start a series with Milwaukee later on tonight. Let's start here with this team, Mark. Obviously, we've got Cubs fans. Our producer, Gavin's a big Cubs fan. We've got other Cubs fans here in the area that have – and I've said from day one, I've never seen a more loyal fan base for a team that has let them down so many times than the Chicago Cubs. But I will say this is a team that I think surprised a lot of people this year. I know that there was some expectations coming in with Rizzo and with Bryant and Russell and Schwarber and Soler and all these other guys. But there was this expectation it probably would have been another year or two before you really got a good feel for what this group was going to bring. And yet here they sit, second wild card spot in the NL. They've got third best record in Major League Baseball. Was there a point this season where you, as somebody who gets to see every single game, was there a point where you went, you know what, we might be onto something here?
I think it had to be when they reached, I think it was 8 or 9 games above 500, because they were flirting with that. They were sort of stuck in this strange mode of being 4 games over 500 to somewhere between 4 and 6 or 7 games over 500. And after the All-Star break, they come out and they look bad against the Philadelphia Phillies out here at Wrigley Field. And then all along comes this 9-game winning streak where they got to levels I didn't think they were going. I thought they were going to sort of be stuck. Maybe they get up to 10 games over 500, but I never thought that they would get to 25 games over 500. I think that, a big part of it is you see these rookie players sort of becoming what everybody expected them to become, but a whole lot earlier than we expected them to do what they're doing, which is really amazing because you put these expectations on these kind of players, and then they're under this limelight with this fan base, as you mentioned, and then they do what they were supposed to do. And that, to me, is pretty amazing, and it just came a little bit earlier, like you said, than a lot of people thought. But I think when they got to 9 games over 500, then 10 games over, and then they just catapulted with that 9-game winning streak, I started to think, okay, this is real. And the fact that San Francisco doesn't seem to have the same charge that they had in past years, and that sweep of the Giants, that made the Cubs come to pass as well.
Well, you're up there in Chicago. Obviously, you're pretty in tune with the fan base, and I'm sure you get a chance to speak to a number of fans up there. With all that being said, is there still some, maybe cautious optimism, because of the history of this team? Is there still that group of fan base, or is there still that mentality we're pretty happy with where they are, but we're just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop? Or have they just said, you know what, at this point, we'll take it?
A cautious optimism will always exist with Cubs fans because of the things that have happened in the past. But I think we kind of look at this year, or what's going on with this team, as a bonus season, and that whatever happens this year, because this wasn't the year that the Cubs were expected to do what they're doing. And really, when you look at the whole thing, they're still not the team that is expected to win the World Series this year. Yes, they are now expected to get into the playoffs. They're expected to do that. But once they're in there, they're still not. And it would be a huge disappointment if they were to lose a 1-game wild card, but they are not expected to win that. So that's what makes this different from years past. I mean, you can go back to the 2007 and 2008 years under Lou Piniella. Cubs were expected to win those years. They did, and then were consequently swept by, Arizona and the Dodgers, respectively, in 07 and 08. So this, I just think this already feels like gravy to most fans this year. But yeah, there still is that, what horrible thing will happen in the postseason this year. But to me, nothing horrible can truly happen just because it's all cake.
Talking with Mark Grote, pre- and post-game host in the Cubs radio network. Obviously, we carry all the Chicago Cubs games here, so people around this area are used to hearing you. And I know we enjoy your work. The three of us do, Ryan, myself, and Gavin as well. This team being so young, coming in, and now in a playoff race. I mean, the magic number, what is it now, 6? Is that right? Five.
Yeah.
Okay, so but now with you get younger guys and rookies, and now you're coming down the stretch. It's something that the city of Chicago hasn't felt in a while, and these guys haven't ever felt at this level. Joe Maddon is kind of the working man's manager. That's got to be one of the best things for these young players is having Joe Maddon as a manager, as laid back as he is, and he's just kind of like, you know what, let's just do what we need to do. Does that make it easier with as young as this team is?
Yeah, I think it does. It's a great point because I always say Joe Maddon knows how to do this. He has done this his whole life. I mean, going back to his days in the Angels organization, he was nothing but a minor league manager, a scout. He worked with young players. You guys know exactly what he did with Tampa Bay. He took all those super prospects and made that thing work, and then he's come here to the Cubs, and so far, so good. I mean, he knows exactly how to do this, how to work it, how to get into these guys' heads. And his big thing is, he always says, I don't know if you guys have heard, he always talks about how he leaves the players alone. He does. Like, we always say, well, what'd you say to Starlin Castro when he made that error? What'd you say to so-and-so when they missed the bunt? What do you say? He's like, nothing. I don't say anything to these guys. I mean, he truly delegates that power to his coaches, to Dave Martinez and Chris Fazio, and the third base coach, Gary Jones, who works with the infielders, and Brandon Hyde, the first base coach. I mean, he really lets those guys work with the players. Now, Maddon will work with guys when he absolutely has to, but he always looks at it as, all right, I'm going to collect the information, and then my job is to sit in that dugout and manage the game. And that's what he does so well, too. I mean, he's a great guy. Joe Maddon's a fun dude to be around. He's great to talk to on air and off the air, but at the end of the day, he's a mother as a manager, and he is really good at being a manager and doing what he has to do with all the different configurations we've seen in the lineup, defensively, pulling guys out of games early like he has done with Jason Hamill a couple times earlier this year, benching Starlin Castro, putting Chris Coghlan out at second base, and looking at the lineup today, he's got Chris Coghlan hitting ninth, so we'll find out about that as well. But he really has an amazing mind in terms of being a manager, an amazing mind and a creative mind as well.
You mentioned him being kind of the mother of this team, so to speak, and like any mother, when somebody goes after their kids, they get a little upset by that. And he made some comments after it was the first or second game. Things got a little heated between the Cubs and the Cardinals. Some headhunting was going on, so to speak, and Maddon obviously didn't take too kindly to that. What's your take on how that went? I think it was Saturday's game where I think Rizzo got plunked and then Carpenter got hit in the head. Was that just standard baseball retaliation kind of thing, or do you feel like maybe there was something more to it?
Well, first of all, I thought the whole weekend was fantastically entertaining to have these two teams not like each other and sort of nipping at each other. All right, I'll say this about all of that. First of all, Matt Holliday gets hit in the head. I do believe that it was not on purpose, that Dan Herron was not trying to hit him in the head by any means. I really don't think so. In that spot, it did not make baseball sense. Herron was getting ready to come out of the game anyway. To me, it just makes no sense. Was he trying to go high and inside? Probably, but hit the guy in the head? No way was he trying to do that. Now, at the end of that next part that I would say is that when one of my heavy hitters gets hit, I don't care if it's on purpose or not on purpose, dude got hit in the head by our arch rivals. I kind of did expect there to be retaliation, and I didn't think it was that big of a deal. And honestly, Anthony Rizzo didn't think it was that big of a deal either, because they all anticipated that it was going to happen. Before Rizzo came up, it was interesting to see the Cardinals had bullpen guys working, and there was no reason why they needed those at the time. And it was Matt Belisle who ended up hitting him. Rizzo kind of knew it was coming. It still pissed him off, but he knew it was coming. So I think it's perfect baseball acumen. I think it was pretty funny. Nothing got crazy. Nobody got hurt. Obviously Carpenter had to leave that game, but he's okay. Or Holiday, excuse me. So that's the good news there, and really just intensifies what is already, as you guys know, a fantastic rivalry.
Mark Grote, our guest. He hosts the pre- and post-game shows, and you can hear him throughout the Cubs broadcasts here on ESPN Evansville 105.3. One more for you, Mark, and we'll let you go, and we appreciate the time. As this team gets closer and more than likely looks like they'll be in that wild card situation, more than likely against Pittsburgh, what are your concerns for this team as you look at this team as a whole? Obviously, you got young guys there that are playing baseball far longer than they probably are used to over the course of a season. But some concerns from you as you go in to get ready for postseason play that this team may find themselves struggling with.
Well, I think there's two areas where you can look at. You can look at tonight's starting pitcher is a big deal, and that's Jason Hamill. Obviously, once you get past Jake Arrieta and John Lester, you don't have the same sort of depth. You don't have the same sort of comfort when it gets to Jason Hamill. And then tomorrow's starter, Kyle Hendricks, and obviously Dan Herron. And so then you have some other pieces that you could sort of play with. Obviously, that's not going to be a problem in a one-game playoff, but if you do advance beyond that, you do have to think about the fact that you have struggled in that 3, 4, 5 spots in the starting rotation. I guess the other part, too, would be, you kind of alluded to it, the inexperience. I mean, you have two teams in the Cardinals and the Pirates, which are far more experienced and, put together for a little bit longer than the Cubs have been put together. And then the bullpen, too, which has been really good over the last week or so. But you can look at any team and say, okay, who can I depend on at this point? I think, obviously, Hector Rondon is somebody you could depend on. Pedro Strop is somebody you could depend on. Probably Justin Grimm, although he's sort of struggled a little bit recently. So it's just having those dependable arms out of the bullpen and not tire them out too much here in the last couple of weeks of the season. Those are my only real concerns at this point in time. But, I look at all of Major League Baseball at this point. Absolutely anything could happen with the Cubs. They could win that wild card, or they could lose that wild card and be done. They could also win the World Series this year. That's the point at which I think the Cubs are. Anything can happen.
That's Mark Grote. Catch him on all of the Cubs broadcasts here on ESPN Evansville 105.3, pre- and post-game, and, of course, throughout the games, providing scoreboard updates as well. Mark, it was a lot of fun. We like listening to you, and hopefully you get an opportunity to keep calling some games deep into October.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds like a plan to me. Thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
Sure thing. Appreciate it, Mark. Take care.